Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, let's see. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put out 2 separate episodes between now and Friday. And one of these episodes, I want to sit sort of all by itself and make it an easily digestible and referenceable, if that's a word, episode for everybody if they're interested in moving it around. And it's not going to be this episode, but it will be the next one, which will be about the fake words that we all hear on a constant basis and the origins of these words and their definitions, their true definitions at their origin of their actual inception, who created them, what was on the minds of the people who created these words that we consistently hear and use, and how those words are constantly, again, manipulated in our society and now have been bent and are unfortunately becoming ubiquitous, regardless of the so-called political party that is using them. And these are not good words. In fact, many of them, like I said a moment ago, just have completely perverse definitions that are basically the exact opposite of what their original definition was. So that won't be this episode, but that will be the next episode, and I have a list of at least 14 to 15 words that I'm going to run through. So I highly recommend checking that one out when I'm done with this. And then again, you can move that around to anybody if you're interested, because I am sick and tired of hearing people describe these kinds of words and use these kinds of words and not know what they mean. And it really is mass manipulation on all sides of the so-called political spectrum. In fact, that right there was going to be the episode that Jesse James and I and Outcast were going to do before the assassination attempt on Trump, allegedly. So I asked him, I said, is it okay if I just do a standalone episode on the fake words and these definitions, et cetera, sort of on my own? And he said, absolutely, go for it. So I'm going to do that, and that will be, again, the very next episode after this. So, with that said, let me get into this now, just some geopolitical things and a number of other stuff. First of all, I wanted to sort of let everybody know about this very quickly. I plan on putting out some more Substacks, sort of with more regularity, as I alluded to a couple of months ago. But with everything that's going on, there's a great deal of information that is being ignored. Because unfortunately, we live in a culture that is hooked up to dopamine receptors and serotonin, and everybody wants the latest click, and everybody wants to look like they're on top of things, and like they're the first person putting something out or letting people know about something, and so on and so on. And it's in moments like these where I try not to do any of that, and I try not to engage in any of that, and I just slow down. Because we have to pay attention to the fact that those kinds of things, these news headlines, for example, the United States Secret Service director resigning, that was predictable, and we knew that. But, these breaking news headlines and all this other stuff, it just becomes an immediate adrenaline rush for so many people without people just slowing down and go, yeah, we knew that, so who cares? And there's way more, of course, to everything that's going on than what meets the eye, but we can't lose sight of the other things that are really happening here and the other moves that are being made, because this is what the enemy understands. The enemy understands that the vast majority of Americans are clamoring for that latest breaking news headline. And who's going to say it first, and how many clicks and likes and shares are they going to get, and is that going to monetize them in some particular way, and what analysis do they have regarding all of that? It's useless. It's absolutely useless. We have to keep paying attention to the more important things that are consistently moving on down the line here, that have a negative or even positive impact on us, and then continue to bring that to people who listen to shows like this. And again, there are numerous shows like this, but pay attention to the similarities that a lot of those shows have. And one of those similarities, like I said a minute ago, is that everybody's just clamoring for some breaking news headline. We just have to slow down, and we have to look at what, all the other things that are actually happening here, and there are many of them. So let me give you a few updates here just very quickly to my website and a few of the things that I've added over there. And then I'll get into some of the Substack things that I've added as well. First of all, I've added 3 documents to the government documents section. So if you click on government documents on that government documents tab on my website and you scroll down that list, you'll see number 33, 34, and 35. Number 33 is a PDF typed copy document titled A Study on Assassination, and it's a 1953 CIA document on the long history of the involvement of the intelligence agency in political killings. I recommend reading this. It's thorough, it's in-depth, and it's incredible. There's also number 34 here, which is Project 2025 by the Heritage Foundation. You can give that a read too if you're interested, and when you do, you'll recognize the similarities that I recognized over a year ago when I brought that document up on my show. Then there's number 35, which is the UN's document on replacement migration, and it was titled Replacement Migration, Population Division, Department of Economic and Social Affairs, United Nations Secretariat. It's a real document. Again, that PDF is right there for anybody to read, and if anybody says that replacement migration or eliminating white people is not something that is a scheme that global government has, ladies and gentlemen, this document exists. This is very real. It does not get more real than this. It's like somebody saying that, there's no book on how to set a table at dinner time. And then you get on Amazon and you look up all the different kinds of books on how to set a table appropriately. I mean, this is common sense. This is a very real thing. So for someone to actually believe the opposite, they're beyond foolish. So again, that giant list of documents, and I have 35 documents on there right now under the Government Documents tab, all of which, again, point to who our enemy is and what our enemy has been doing this entire time. I read all of these documents, and if you read them too, it will be undeniable to you. It's an excellent library of information that exists here that is available to anyone for free. So, again, to dismiss this is foolish, I think, but at the exact same time, for someone to just blindly say that something doesn't exist, this website, I created my website on purpose to give people an opportunity to share it and say, oh yeah, you don't think this exists? Well, here it is. And then you can show them. So feel free and bounce over to AmericanEducationFM.com. And again, click on the Government Documents tab, and you'll see all those documents in that giant list right there at the very beginning. Okay, let me get into this. If I didn't say it already, I'm losing my voice. This is happening. This is a thing, so this will be fun with a podcast and all. The AmericanClassroom.substack.com, my Substack page. A couple of days ago, I put out a Substack titled The Operations of CrowdStrike, their past moves, the players involved, and the Q drops that told us to dig. It's lengthy, but again, it's an excellent history lesson, and I recommend giving that a read. What you will quickly find out is that CrowdStrike is not who they say they are. They are not some cybersecurity network that works in the best interests of companies and or anyone else. They data mine, they data profile, they do a lot of the things that Palantir does, and they, of course, are a subsidiary of the so-called deep state and the enemy that exists. And then, of course, they operate under the guise of, again, being something for private companies or any company who wants cybersecurity, when in fact their interests are really in protecting criminals in the deep state, allegedly, and that's what they do. But there's an entire history on there, and I know that I referenced that, I believe, in the last episode, but I highly recommend you check that out. Remarkably important. On top of that, I've written another one here. Again, I didn't really write it. I just sort of introduced it as briefly as I can, but I've put together a few Substack articles regarding the work of Sabrina Wallace. And she continues to make videos on her Rumble channel, which is P Synergy. And I highly recommend, again, checking this one out as well. There's a 35-minute video, that I included in this Substack, which is the meat of the Substack, which I highly recommend that you watch. Again, she connects all of the dots, specifically regarding biosensors and nano drones. And this, of course, is a thing. So the title of that one is Biosensors and Nano Drones, the Continued Work of Sabrina Wallace and Government's Weaponization of the Human Body Against Itself via Surveillance and Health Monitoring. Again, this is all being sold to people as a safety precaution. Don't worry, we're surveilling the bad guy, they say. Don't worry, we're surveilling the bad guy. They're surveilling us. And then they're having us breathe in poison, eat and drink poison, inject yourself with poison, swallow poison via the medical system and or chemtrails and, of course, everything else, and the biosensors that exist in all of the technology that we use, including the most foolish who have the Apple Watches on their actual wrists, which are monitoring far more than the time on the clock. And then ultimately, this is being used to diminish your own health. And as you might expect, it's being done without the knowledge of the very people participating in it. Not to mention, it's, as I stated in the last episode, they're even hiring individuals to work for these particular groups and these particular companies and government agencies who have no idea what's going on. They just believe that they all of a sudden are important because they are working for government, so they think. When in fact they're working for an entity that is seeking to hurt their fellow citizens and ultimately kill them, which is why all of this is a part of the depopulation agenda. And yes, the COVID bioweapon shots are a piece of that. That was the fastest way to get this technology and these sensors into your bloodstream, which again is why you have endless individuals who remain ill, you have endless individuals who died on the spot, and then you have endless individuals who are everywhere in between. So they don't know what's going on. And they don't know that this exists in our world and that our government and multiple foreign governments are involved in this, along with endless NGOs. And all of it is criminal. Because what is their motive? Their motive is murder. Their motive is illness, profit, and murder. So again, there's a 35-minute video in that Substack, which I highly recommend that you watch. Again, it'll give you a quick update as to her work and what she's continuing to point out to people. And as she consistently points out, and she's 100% right, is that this right here is what the so-called normies don't dive into. They don't want to learn about this. They're literate, and they can comprehend lots of different things, but they don't keep going with what really is happening in the world. And when they come across a particular subject, they'll foreclose and say, well, I don't understand this. Or I can't keep up with Sabrina Wallace. Or I can't, I don't like her tone. Or I don't like this or I don't like that. Her tone of voice in her videos doesn't bother me because I understand her frustration. I understand what it's like to know a particular thing, try to explain it to people, people don't understand it, and you even slow down and you still explain it in a very digestible way, so you think anyway. And then they still don't act appropriately, and they still don't remove particular things from their lives that they very easily could to improve their state of affairs. Not to mention, what is really the largest currency that we have as human beings? It's certainly love. I think that's arguably the largest currency that we have, as long as that love is authentic. But it's also knowledge. And we have a responsibility to engage in and trade in both of those currencies on a constant basis. So to limit one's knowledge to breaking headlines and just follow that carrot all the way down the track, which ultimately goes off every single cliff, because if all you're doing is chasing breaking headlines, you're not diving into deeper issues. So again, I recommend bouncing over to theamericanclassroom.substack.com and checking out her work and watching that video. Again, it was titled Biosensors and Nano Drones. It's a very real thing. And as you would expect, and as I stated, and as she states, it's all being sold to people under the guise of security and health monitoring. And that's not what it is. It is the Internet of Bodies. It is the wireless body area network. It is designed to change your body into being a receptor of technology and wireless information. And that is only going to make you ill, and then it will make you dead. So, again, is it serious? Yeah, it certainly is. But like I've said before, and I've even made memes of it in recent days and put them in the war videos and on my Gab page, I don't care who the President of the United States is right this second. Doesn't bother me. I don't care if Joe Biden's dead or alive. It doesn't bother me one way or another. I don't care if Kamala Harris is pretending to be the President of the United States, quote unquote, or not. They're a criminal entity. All of them are. And the bad guys can trade roles and make it look like this is happening and that's happening and whatever else. What I know is that there's way more going on than what we're ever going to see. Any of the major news outlets have no idea what the hell is going on. Kimberly Cheadle, the former United States Secret Service lady, in her testimony the other day to the House Oversight Committee, that was exactly what I said it would be, which is the dog and pony show. It didn't matter. She didn't answer anything because it's all under investigation by the FBI. So who trusts the FBI? Nobody. You shouldn't anyway. Christopher Wray is set to speak on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. What's he going to say? Nothing. Because he can't. Because it's under investigation. And then what will they do? The FBI will produce a document that says, here's what happened, there were failures, there were mistakes, she's resigned, blah, blah, blah. But thank God for the agents who were there. It's not their fault. They did what they had to do, and this is the way that it had to be done, and blah, blah, blah. And they'll manufacture everything and even take fake photographs of particular things to justify their narrative and their storyline that they want to put together to just give the American people. And again, what's going to come from it? Are you really going to see all of the communications, do you think, of all of the people that were communicating back and forth before, during, or after that, and watch all of them hang on a gallows? No, we're not going to see that. And that's not me blackpilling. That's just me telling you the truth. We're not going to see that. It was even in the Q drops. We're going to see 20% of what actually takes place. The other 80% we'll never see. We should count on that, because that's kind of the way that it's already been going, isn't it? I mean, we were told in advance that this is what's going to happen. This is so serious that this is what's taking place. Now, as you might expect, and I've brought this up from a historic standpoint, this continues to be the biggest mistake that our government, and even good guys in our government, continue to engage in, is that they believe that we can't handle the truth. Even Joseph Goebbels himself, Dr. Goebbels, knew that the best form of the best kind of propaganda is truthful propaganda. And for anyone to believe that they can't handle it, or for a government or an agency or whomever to actually believe that the people cannot handle the truth, is the biggest mistake that they ever make. He openly stated this. Now, as you know from a historic standpoint, both because I've brought it up here on the show, the term propaganda is not only not a bad word, it was initially a very good word at its inception. It came about before World War I regarding the British, and the British being told we have no business going into Europe. The British citizens were told this by endless individuals, including government officials, and saying we have no business going there. This does not serve our interests in any capacity whatsoever. We're going to lose lives, which means we're losing Britons. We're going to lose money. We're going to lose resources. Explain how this actually benefits anyone. And they couldn't. And that was the history of the inception of the word of propaganda. Now, I've been over that on the show before, so it's not going to be in the next episode, but or I might bring it up again. But you get the point. Is that even that word has been perversed over the course of time to be a bad word. Well, that's not true. And Goebbels knew that, and he knew that you had to tell the people the truth, because if you're not moving in a truthful direction, what are you doing? You're building homes on quicksand, and that doesn't help anybody. So along those lines, again, with Christopher Wray showing up on Wednesday, what do you actually think you're going to see? You're going to see evil propaganda. You're going to see evasive maneuvers. You're going to see a lot of things. And no one's going to call for Christopher Wray's resignation. They could have in the last, in the last meeting with Cheadle. They could have said that. They could have said, we want the director of the FBI to resign, because this was an FBI failure also. Again, if the FBI was there, which we knew that we know that they were, and if we knew that they were engaging in communication, radio communication, phone communication, internet communication, all back and forth, which we know that they were, why on earth would they be in charge of their own investigation of the thing that they were monitoring in the first place? And how do you think that result's going to end up? See, you're smart people. You already know the answer to that question. This is all the dog and pony show. This is the political back and forth for the slave class, which I've brought up before. It's the exact same thing. Let them play those games. We need to pay attention to more in-depth stuff that's actually taking place. And yes, I'm kind of sticking my nose up in the air a little bit because, look what everybody's doing. They're grasping for the latest headline. Breaking, breaking, breaking. Who said it first? Did you say it first? I said it first. Well, I matter more than you do. None of that matters. It's all a waste of time, and it's a waste of energy. So in moments like this, again, I recommend that everybody just kind of slow down, gather evidence. I would even go so far as to do this, because I do this with regularity. I used to do this one very specific move constantly, in particular when I was in graduate school, but I do it now, but in a different fashion. I used to walk around with a very small book. It looked like a small little diary. It wasn't any bigger than the palm of your hand. And it was a flip open book, and it would allow me, with a pen inside, and it would allow me to write down notes. Something came to my mind, I would flip it open and I'd write it down. And yeah, I know that there's note apps on your cell phones and 1,000 other things, but I prefer writing it down by hand, because then my own writing triggers my memory as to what it is that I was actually writing about and what I was thinking about at the time, as opposed to just typing it into a phone app, which I'm actually less likely to check in the first place. But in moments like this now, where the war is escalating and there's numerous back and forths taking place, my recommendation is you keep a small notebook on your person, or keep it with you. Keep it in a purse, or keep it in your automobile, or wherever you're traveling, or whatever you're doing. And when a thought comes to mind, or something that you want to send somebody, or whatever it is, write it down. Again, the show notes that I have for this show are usually kept on a Word document, but if you were to look at my desk right now, I have 2 pads of paper, and both have notes written on them in chronological order of things that I want to bring up. So, it's not helter-skelter. I don't have to put, red lines from picture to picture on a giant wall and create this giant Venn diagram. But you can just create a general list of thoughts and get them out of your head, which is healthy to do. And then down on a piece of paper of things that you either want to look up, or things that you want to look into, or whatever it may be. So that's just kind of a little tip regarding all of this. Okay, let me mention this too. If you're not familiar with the search engine Yandex, my recommendation is that you make this an application on your phone, and that you make it your go-to for search engines. Yandex is excellent, and I've been using it now for quite some time, and it's far more objective than any other search engine that I've used. It really is. Again, it's free. You don't have to pay for it. It's better than Brave. It's way better than Start Page, which was the one that I was using. It's better than anything else. Certainly Google is a piece of trash, when it comes to certain things, but you can look up a great deal on Google, I suppose, certainly from the enemy's standpoint, and they'll tell you all kinds of things. But at the exact same time, if you want the real truth about real history and the real origins of particular things, you're more likely to find it on Yandex. So that's spelled Yandex. Again, my recommendation is that you download that application on your phone, and that you use that one as a good, viable search engine. It certainly seems to be, as far as I'm concerned, for some of the things that I'm interested in searching and looking up. So there's that. Okay, as far as the assassination attempt, let me get into this now just one more time. I know I said I was going to put it to the side, and I am, but there was another picture that came out of this Yarrick character, and I put it on Gab again just as another reminder. So it's over on my Gab page in the photos section if you want to check it out. Again, the questions become, who took the picture of this Yarrick guy's face on the roof of that building, if in fact his picture was taken on the roof of that building? It certainly looks like it's him, 100% without a doubt. The next picture, of course, that's come out regarding his face is a picture of him when he was alive. It's not a mugshot, but it's like a selfie that he took of himself. And he has a gauge in his right ear, which, as we know, has been removed. And the surgery to fill that hole and take the lobe of the ear and put it back up to where it normally is available there. His right ear doesn't quite look the same from one picture to the next as far as the inner lobe is concerned, but then again, it's a slightly different angle. So, is Photoshop at play here? It very well could be. It certainly could be, and there could be certain pieces of this that were all pieced together. And again, I know it sounds all confusing, but there are similarities between this alive picture of Yarrick and this dead picture of what it appears to be Yarrick as well. There's a couple of beyond basic facial structure, lip shape, and all of that, which I went over, and Jesse James and Outcast and myself went over on his show, but 2 Mondays ago. But on the right side of Yarrick's neck is a skin tag. It's not a mole, but it's a red skin tag. And you know what those look like. They're not moles. They extend off of the skin a little bit more than a mole. They're red. They're not brown. And there's visibly one on the right side of his neck in both the alive and the dead picture. So that would be an indication again that this is the same individual. There's another one which you almost have to zoom in on, as I do that right now, and I'm looking at it. And I know you're not looking at it right now either, but you can kind of vaguely make this out. Yarrick in the right side of his chin, he has what appears to be a scar. 2 of them almost. They're side by side. It looks like a scrape. One is wider than the other. Almost like it's a psoriasis mark or it's an indentation. And you can see this in the actual picture itself. In the picture that he takes of himself where he's alive, he has more facial hair on his chin, but you can still see through his chin hair. You can see the scar mark. And you can see how it's wider toward the middle of his mouth, and then it's not quite as wide the more to the right side of his chin that it becomes. My point is this. The picture that was floating around of the dead face on the internet is in fact Yarrick. It's Yarrick's face. So wherever he is, he's dead. Now, was he there on the roof taking any shots of any kind? It's possible. I just continue to find it very interesting that here we are 10 plus days out from that shooting, and we still haven't seen a picture of the gun. We still haven't seen the rounds of bullets that were used. We haven't seen those specifics of any kind. It was even alluded to in the congressional hearing with Cheadle, except no specifics were brought up. What was the brand of gun that was used? I didn't even hear that question. It's possible someone asked it, but it didn't receive an answer, because had it received an answer, we would be talking about the kind of gun. Where was it purchased? Who had it? Etc., etc. Excuse me. The other part, of course, is that there's this narrative out there that the Crooks kid, for those that believe that he was a trigger man, that he was one of these individuals that apparently took the gun from his father. Well, there's no evidence that that's the case. It's all hearsay. This person said it, so it must be true. Well, that's inaccurate also, and that's not evidence. That's not viable evidence of anything. So again, let me just go through Maxwell Yarrick real quick. This was from Assets Magazine, from let me see, CACLUBINDIA.com. And this was posted on July 21st. It was titled, Maxwell Yarrick is the second sniper at Trump rally. Maxwell Yarrick went missing on the 14th of July, Sunday. His parents have filed a missing person report with the FBI after his phone went off. Unknown people have deleted Facebook and Instagram accounts of Maxwell Yarrick. And it shows, again, the picture of his ear. It shows his face, the ear surgery, and all of that. So here's what it says. It says, point, shooter, detail, Trump was shot by Yarrick. Point, reports, discrepancy in shooter identity. Rally, Butler, Pennsylvania incident. Missing, he disappeared after the rally. Reported, missing report filed in Arizona. So now apparently the missing persons report is missing. Allegedly. Then there's this, which again is a nice little rundown of a number of facts regarding Maxwell Yarrick, apparently. There are 20 of them. It says Maxwell Yarrick is identified as the shooter of Trump. Media and FBI reports differ on the identity of the shooter. Trump was shot at his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, which, by the way, just very quickly, I have no proof that he was actually shot. Certainly sounded like shots were going by. There's no doubt about that. It's on the audio and lots of people reacted appropriately. I just have some questions about the actual wound itself on Trump's ear. Again, was it a remote-controlled blood capsule? Was it something else, or was he in fact really shot? It seems like there would be way more bruising to the general ear area, if not the scalp itself and the head. But again, I'm speculating because I don't know, because I wasn't there and I wasn't a part of what was going on. So I get to ask questions. It doesn't mean I hate Trump. It doesn't mean I hate anybody. I'm just asking questions. It says number 4 here, the incident happened on July 13th of 2024. Number 5, Maxwell Yarrick has been missing since the day of the rally. Number 6, his family reported him missing in Arizona on Sunday. Number 7, Maxwell Yarrick's social media accounts have been deleted. Number 8, his phone has been turned off. Number 9, Maxwell Yarrick returned to the United States in April of 2024 after fighting for the Ukrainian army. Number 10, his facial features and ears match the shooter's photos released by the FBI. Now again, that's been my question from the start. Who took the photograph? And why is it that we have the photograph of a face that appears to be Maxwell Yarrick on what appears to be the roof of that building in the appropriate direction that was facing the sun that the picture has been taken in, and yet we have no picture of any gun and or bullets or bullet casings? It says number 11, the FBI towed a GMC truck from the rally site. Number 12, the truck had Arizona license plates. Number 14, the supposed sniper, Thomas Crooks, has no connections to Arizona. Number 15, Maxwell Yarrick's previously worked at Patterson Energy. Number 16, Patterson Energy is owned by the Rothschild family. Number 17, Austin Private Wealth reportedly shorted Trump's company stock before the shooting. Number 18, the Rothschilds are major investors in Austin Private Wealth. Number 19, Maxwell Yarrick was involved in a violent Antifa protest in Seattle. And number 20, he reportedly organized 500 protesters for the Seattle event. And then it says Maxwell Yarrick history. He first gained attention fighting in Ukraine with the army against Russia-backed forces in 2023. After his success in Ukraine, the CIA recruited him for secret operations. Yarrick's first CIA mission was to help Kurdish forces in Syria against ISIS. It says he trained Kurdish fighters, coordinated airstrikes, and survived an assassination attempt His work earned him respect, but also left him troubled by the moral complexities of war. Back in the United States, Yerrick struggled to adjust to normal life. This could all be fake too, ladies and gentlemen. Everything that I'm reading here could also be completely put together by the enemy in order to distract us. But you still have to take it into consideration. It says he became involved in political protests, often leading militant fractions. His military background made him an effective leader in these riots, where he organized large groups and clashed with law enforcement. Yerrick's actions were controversial. Some saw him as a hero fighting for justice, while others viewed him as a dangerous agitator. Maxwell Yerrick's experience with the CIA and in various conflicts shaped his complex persona, blending heroism with controversy. See, it seems oddly written, but at the same time, why is it that we're seeing his dead face and not the dead face of this Crooks kid? Because the two faces are not the same. They just aren't the same person. And it's painfully obvious that that's the case. Now, let me get back to Cheadle's testimony very quickly, too. There were a couple of moments in it that I thought were interesting. In fact, if you're going to go back and watch any of it, watch it for body language alone. The nonverbal communication that exists in that particular setting certainly indicates that Cheadle herself is blackmailed and owned. She's completely controlled. You don't actually become the director of the United States Secret Service without being controlled to some extent. You have to be. Only in an objective, truth-telling administration, which is hard to come by, would they actually hire anybody who knew what they were doing. This is why you would have to hire like a Dan Bongino or somebody like that who's clearly a good person, albeit, foolish when it comes to government bioweapons, clearly, because he's jabbed, but he understands the level of evil that he's injected into himself now, so he's certainly awake on that standpoint, which is great, and it's good to have him on our side. But you would have to hire somebody like him, not somebody who has been a lifer on the inside forever and has never been on the outside. So Cheadle's about as owned, blackmailed, and dirty as certainly they came. But there was a moment where she was being questioned by a Republican male congressman. And it was a good line of questioning, but he asked about the level of surveillance and communication that took place. And she was asked whether or not the communications, radio communications specifically, i.e. telephone and or, handheld radio communications were saved from that day. And she said something like, no, they hadn't been, or yes, they had been. Either way, regardless of her answer, it can't be believed one way or another, because as soon as she said it, and this is a consistent verbal tic, in particular, among, not even a verbal tic, rather, it's a subconscious nonverbal communication that they're giving to people who are watching, that what the answer that they just provided is not truthful. She immediately grabs her pen off of the table and puts it in her hands and grips it like she's about to write something, but she's not writing anything and there's nothing to write. So the reaching for the pen and the grabbing the pen and putting the pen in the hand is a calming effect to a question that she didn't like, to an answer that was deceptive. That right there, again, is just one of many particular verbal cues that give her away as being disingenuous. And again, of course, as we know, the default answer is that the FBI is investigating and they'll get to the bottom of it and it'll be 60 days before a report is complete and blah, blah, blah. It just takes them 60 days to all get on the same page about what was going on. And the thing that would, of course, destroy the entire report that came out would be any kind of a whistleblower that would come forward and openly testify about what went on that day that counters what the actual report states. And if there are multiple whistleblowers, then those people should get protection and protect themselves and reach out to Congress and openly say, hey, look, when this report comes out, give me a call and I'll show up and testify on the record about what really went on. Now, I'm going to take a deep breath on this one because I want people to think multidimensionally about this. We know, first of all, that Donald Trump is really the legal commander-in-chief. Like I've said, there's ample evidence that that's the case. With that said, and knowing that this is warfare, and knowing that he has communications at his disposal that the enemy is probably also aware of, and that Space Force is probably working on his behalf, not on behalf of the enemy, but surveilling both at the exact same time, do you actually find it possible, I should say, that Donald Trump would know and the good guys would know that such an event was going to take place, that they would take a shot at him? So what they would do is they would hone in on the day based on the communications that they had, that they were going to take a shot at him. But instead of them actually being successful against him, even though they may have actually taken a shot, they sped up the timeline of that shot and that shot going off to where a blood capsule would burst behind his ear, because let's face it, his hair always covers his ears, so there would be no indication that anybody would see a blood capsule. But if one did pop behind his ear, you would catch it, of course, on any surrounding microphone, and it might sound like an actual gunshot. But again, if you're playing 5D and 7D chess with these people, wouldn't that be the way that you would catch all of them in a giant communication sting operation? Would be to metaphorically pull the trigger on their operation faster than they were capable of pulling the trigger? And then once that capsule bursts, then he hits the ground and more shots continue to be fired, or they were all fired, generally around the same time. Again, I'm not saying that happened. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't a part of any communication or intel team. I wasn't there. But if you're engaging in game theory and you're playing a war game out and you're using Sun Tzu's The Art of War and The Art of Deception, and you're playing 5D chess all at the exact same time, wouldn't that be a way that it would get done? You would gather, again, that communication intel, and you would know that they were going to do something on that day to you. So why not jump the metaphorical gun, so to speak, and speed up their plan by you being in control of when everything goes down as opposed to the other way around? Again, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as food for thought, that this is where my mind goes because I slow down and I think a little bit about what actually takes place. I'm not believing what is being sold to people at face value, because there's more here. And there's so much that we can't consider. It's like back when you were in school and you're doing a math problem. You're doing some kind of an algebra problem. If the algebra problem isn't complete before you get it in order to solve it, then you're not really solving the problem. You're not being solved the actual problem that you're asked to actually solve. If there's a variable missing in the problem, then you're not going to arrive at the actual answer. Certainly not the answer that other people are arriving at or attempting to arrive at. I don't know if that's a good example, but I hope you see what I'm saying. You can't put a puzzle together if you don't have all the pieces, is basically what I'm trying to say. So I'm just trying to think multidimensionally about it because I find it interesting. I also find this interesting, and I hope she's burning in hell because she's a terrible human being, one of the worst when it comes to congresswomen, was Sheila Jackson Lee. Sheila Jackson Lee is allegedly dead now, thank God, and died just a day or so after Trump was allegedly shot, and a man lost his life, and two others were wounded. Sheila Jackson Lee was in charge of oversight of the United States Secret Service. Would you put it past a Sheila Jackson Lee to work with the United States Secret Service or the director of the United States Secret Service in order to actually take a shot at Trump or communicate with endless government people about killing Trump? Endless people have been on the mainstream media saying we have to take him out, he has to be taken out. Everybody from Maxine Waters to political pundits to, you name it. So in Sheila Jackson Lee's last days of pancreatic cancer, as the story goes, and I saw pictures of her, she looked like she had cancer and she looked terrible. And of course, she lost the election to be Houston's mayor recently, a number of months ago, so that didn't go well for her, and it's been a downhill slide since. But with a woman who's on her deathbed, who's in charge of oversight of the United States Secret Service from a congressional standpoint, rather, do you actually believe that she wouldn't openly communicate with people that she wanted Donald Trump dead? As a dying congresswoman? Of course she would openly say that. She was brazen to begin with. She was arguably one of the most rude, horrific, child trafficking, money laundering human beings that existed out there. She was Mrs. That's a yes or no answer. This is a yes or no question. Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. I mean, I remember watching her in Congress over 10 years ago. And one of my first, I instantly honed in on her just because this aura of evil around her. But she sat directly behind Hillary Clinton when Hillary Clinton was testifying to the House Oversight Committee about Hillary Clinton's actions regarding not just Benghazi, but everything related to Hillary Clinton. And this, of course, was around the time when people were starting to buzz that Hillary Clinton was going to be the Democrat, presidential candidate. And this was before 2016. So here she is again when Barack Obama's still in office. I remember like it was yesterday. She testified for hours and hours and hours. Trey Gowdy was the chairperson of that particular committee, and who was sitting right behind Hillary Clinton? Sheila Jackson Lee. So guilt by association is a very real thing, and Sheila Jackson Lee's laughing when Hillary's laughing and blowing things off, and a number of other things. You got a nice insight into her lack of character, and she was one of the most evil people on the face of the planet. And back during the Q drops, she was specifically highlighted out as symbolism, is going to be their downfall. And there's a picture of her in a congressional hearing where she's sitting at the dais and she has the boy lover symbol on a ring on her finger. And the ring was not photoshopped onto her finger. It was the actual triangular shape of the line going from the middle all the way out in a triangle shape, which is the boy lover symbol, or young boy lover symbol, whatever it is. Again, she associated with murderers and pedophiles, and she just so happened to be in charge of overseeing the United States Secret Service from an oversight standpoint, which in that position doesn't mean oversight, it means cover-up. It means running cover for or protecting. And then, of course, very famously as well, there was video of Sheila Jackson Lee handing what appeared to be an envelope of something to Christine Blasey Ford's lawyer when she was testifying to the Senate Judiciary Committee regarding Brett Kavanaugh's testimony and lying about being, sexually assaulted by Brett Kavanaugh, which everybody knows was a blatant lie. She, of course, lied under oath. That's been proven to be the case. Where is Christine Blasey Ford these days? And what was in the envelope that Sheila Jackson Lee handed her lawyer on camera right after that testimony, which anybody can go and watch on YouTube? They ran a mainstream media story about it, as a matter of fact, in the local news affiliate. They were like, well, it was legal notes that Sheila Jackson Lee was handing to her lawyer, for the next time. Well, it wouldn't matter because that was the last day that she was testifying. So I remember watching it live on TV at the time and saying, that's an envelope full of cash. I mean, it might have cash in it, but maybe it didn't. Maybe it was legal notes. Who knows? But either way, she handed it to him, shook his hand, and then walked away. Okay. It's highly suspicious, but this is the brazen activity of a criminal. So, yeah, burn in hell, Sheila Jackson Lee. You were arguably the worst. You were one of the worst, one of many that were out there, and now you're gone, and thank God for it. Also a notorious bully, by the way, as one would expect, in Congress, with numerous individuals openly being bullied by her and catching all of that on videotape or recorded audio, certainly, and then people resigning from working in her office because she was a nutcase. So there's that, and again, thank God she's gone. Good riddance. Let me see here. Let me get back to this now. A few more things here. There was this list regarding Joe Biden, of course, the other day. Thought I'd read down this just very quickly for whatever superficial reason this is. Again, I could care less, but this is part of the political slave class stuff that goes on, which again should be interesting to some, only from a standpoint that there are blatant inconsistencies here that hopefully can start to wake up a normie. First of all, again, there's maybe half a dozen, or actually there's about a dozen bullet points here, and they go in a particular order. The first one says Joe Biden suddenly resigns. Okay. The next one says the White House staff find out 1 minute later, and they apparently found out over either text message or they found out over social media posts. It says Joe Biden's quote-unquote resignation letter is not on official letterhead. It says Biden's signature is suspect because it's underlined, and it doesn't look like past signatures. The letter B in Biden doesn't even look the same. So people are, of course, asking who signed it. Was it an electronic signature? What gives? Jill Biden tweets heart emoji response. It says apparently a Steve Ricchetti helped write the letter. The White House wipes Biden's schedule for the week. The White House chief of staff calls the cabinet and manages communications. Frank Biden, his younger brother, confirms health is a factor, and the family suggests that Biden may have terminal illness, and Joe Biden holds no live press conference, and then if people are basically saying, is he on his deathbed? Is he already dead? What's going on? Again, I really don't care. What I do know is Jimmy Carter's probably dead, and they've been sitting on his body for the appropriate time to let the American people know that Jimmy Carter's dead, because he's been in hospice for well over a year. And I saw a picture of him. I don't know when the picture was taken, but he already looked like he was dead, sitting in a wheelchair. So there's no way that Jimmy Carter's alive. The question becomes, are they going to either for, I would say, positive optics because of all the combinations and comparisons that have been made between Joe Biden being the worst president in the history of America and Jimmy Carter being the worst president? Which one of those triggers are they going to pull first, metaphorically? Which funeral trigger are they going to pull first? Is it going to be Jimmy Carter? Will it be Biden? Or hell, will both of them die on the exact same time as far as the American public are told? Wouldn't that be funny? Because if that happens, ladies and gentlemen, you better know that white hats are certainly in charge of something. Why else would they do that at the exact same time, on the exact same day? So I think that's only a matter of time, too, because they're going to want more distractions. And the bad guys are going to want more distractions, too. So again, who's really pulling the metaphorical trigger on all of that? Your guess is as good as mine. But there's also this. I don't know if you were aware, but Alex Jones on his show admitted to being a part of the Q team. After all these years of him actually even being singled out as being paid by the Jewish lobby and being disinformation and controlled opposition, he's apparently come out on his show not that long ago, a few days ago, and said that that he was a part of the early Q operation. Don't believe me? Here's him saying it in his own words in 3, 2, 1.
The vaccine's bad, and that it's killing children. I told you Trump knows that. And now, and so, but he knows they'll use it against him if he comes out and admits it. So that process is happening. That's the hand of God again, protecting all of us and protecting Trump. And again, I know all the inside baseball folks. I don't try to sit up here and brag about this stuff, but I talk to Republican leadership. I talk to the patriots that are in intelligence, the highest levels, and they tried to recruit me when Trump first got in. to officially work in their operation. And I respectfully declined. I said, I want to work on my own. And it's too cloak and dagger. I had to be separate from government. But I was involved in the first launching of Q. And I sit there and tell people that, and they go, oh, yeah, right. I mean, folks, I was in a meeting with J.D. Vance a month ago. Rob Dew was right there. And he's a great guy. And he's defended me when I was being censored. When he wasn't a senator, when he was a senator, he told me, I said, so I hear you probably got it. He goes, yeah, I got it. I'm getting it. I'm the VP. He didn't say, don't tell anybody. He just knew. I knew, don't say anything. And I was like, okay. And I didn't say anything.
Now, let me add a little context here because none of that was edited. All of that was one stream, unedited. It was on his show live, the whole thing. Over here on X, there's a bunch of people sort of bouncing back and forth, and they're arriving at the truth eventually, which is kind of nice for a change. But one person said, I saw it live. You didn't play the whole segment of what he said. He said Q was originally run by Trump White House and got hijacked by the deep state. I don't agree with him, but you're being deceptive. See, here's the problem. There's no proof that that's the case. And that would be the excuse that Alex Jones would use because he wants to remain relevant. This right here was the huge dividing line in the so-called media, whether they be deep state media, Zionist, Jewish lobby-controlled media, or the so-called alternative media, not knowing that they're basically both controlled by the same Jewish lobby to a great extent, which is difficult for people to swallow. But the indication where you can tell that individuals who are paying attention to what's going on aren't controlled because they'll call out Jews all the time, i.e. me, or they'll call out the lobby on a constant basis, which of course I do as well, and the Khazarian Mafia and all of that, and they're not afraid to bring that up. The hook here is that Alex Jones has always had visual tics from a nonverbal standpoint that give him away also as being deceptive. One of them has to do with his eye movement and the way that he bounces around, and his eyes will dart around when he's talking about a particular thing. But in that particular audio, he actually very quickly states that he was recruited to be a part of Q initially, and then he immediately goes off into talking about J.D. Vance and meeting with J.D. Vance. Those two things have nothing to do with one another. And remember, he was demonizing anybody who paid attention to Q from the very start by calling it a deep state psyop. There might be some real things in there, but that's what the deep state does, is they put in some real things and then a bunch of confusing things, and then it's all just designed to control people and control the masses. That too is a cop-out. That's not, there's nothing accurate about that either. And there's no indication that that's the case. So again, the people foreclosing on the whole Q movement without actually ever reading it or diving into it, and of course not understanding the larger point of it, which is that it was a positive psychological operation to deprogram the masses and to get them to understand that watching sports ball and TV probably isn't a good idea, and that you should stop watching the media and paying attention to them. But if you learn on your own and then go back and look at the media, you'll see how clearly they're lying and have been this entire time. You'll basically wake up from the Matrix, which means there's no going back to sleep. But for him to be that dismissive with that comment, and then make another dismissive comment about it being hijacked by the deep state, he has no proof of that, because there is no proof of that. In fact, the Q drops are becoming more and more relevant with every passing week. Take CrowdStrike, for example, and those CrowdStrike drops and CrowdStrike's involvement, and not just Seth Rich, but CrowdStrike's involvement in surveillance and the Russiagate lie and all of that. It's a big deal. So again, if Q and those drops are becoming more mainstream, which they certainly seem to be, I've been bringing it up more often because it's relevant. And it's becoming more relevant even at face value for those of us that paid attention to it. But for those that haven't, more Q drops coming out here in the future, which is a question that's being asked with some sense of regularity right now, that if Trump re-enters the scene again and Q drops start coming back, then what? I mean, then you're going to have an even bigger revolution and more people paying attention, and it's going to become more relevant yet again. for a completely different audience now. I almost want to round out the episode by ending it with this, although I'm not going to, but it points back to the thing that I said earlier in the show in this particular episode, which is that's exactly what Dr. Goebbels was talking about, that the truth is the best form of messaging. Everybody can handle the truth because God made us that way. The only person who doesn't want us to handle the truth is Satan, because he's the king of deception. But who's the king of truth? Well, we know the answer to that. So what makes us think that being God's children, that we can't handle the truth? We certainly can. And the more that people have as their the more information they have, factual information as their knowledge base, the more they'll be able to accept the truth of a great many things. And the timing of all of this is very important too. Without a doubt. That's how you build a factual movement. That's how you unbrainwash people. But see, that's what had to happen. That's what had to happen all over the world. You needed your average citizen who digs ditches for a living, and bless their hearts, but you needed that person to wake up. You needed that person to snap out of it. You needed a person in a corporate position to snap out of it. You needed a person who was in charge of hundreds of employees to snap out of it and wake up to this also. That's why in August of 2018, that's when the whole Q thing went mainstream. That's when people, for the very first time, were holding up signs at Trump rallies with Q on it and wearing Q t-shirts. Because it had been around for almost an entire year. And Q was telling people, it's almost time to go mainstream. How many more times before the media asks the question, who is Q and what is Q and what is this? They were forcing the media to ask who they were to make it go mainstream. It's Zootsfing. That was 5D chess right there. It was Zootsfing. You were forcing the media to ask about what it was, thereby making the mainstream media talk about the thing that they didn't want to talk about and bring up the thing that they didn't want to bring up, because they knew that if they did, people would start asking questions, what is this? And it worked, didn't it? That's why you can't say that it is, that's why anybody thinking can't say that it was Operation Trust, quote unquote, or that it was a disinformation campaign, quote unquote. It wasn't. It was far from. It was the exact opposite. And again, it was an amazing time to be alive, and it's still relevant today and continues to be. Now let me play this too. This is, again, I'm switching gears slightly again, but this is a piece of audio that I've included in war videos in the past before, but this is from 1989. And it was Gerald Ford being asked by a small school-age girl how a woman would become president of the United States. And this is just a minute long, but here was his answer, and it's playing out right now, so rather interesting. In 3, 2, 1.
What advice would you give a young lady wanting to become president of the United States?
Well, I hope we do have a young lady at some point become president of the United States. I can tell you how I think it will happen, because it won't happen in the normal course of events. Either the Republican or Democrat political party will nominate a man for president and a woman for vice president. And the woman and man will win. So you'll end up with a president, a male, and a vice president, a female. And in that term of office of the president will die. And the woman will become president.
My apologies for it cutting off, but of course he said president, and yeah, there may be even longer clips that exist out there, but that's what he said. So that seems to be playing out right now, does it not? Rather interesting. Okay. Finally, sort of geopolitically here, Benjamin Netanyahu is unfortunately in our country right now and is set to speak on Wednesday to Congress. This isn't good. At face value, this isn't good. Unfortunately for the normies and for the political parties, certainly who are owned, and political individuals who are owned in our country by the Jewish lobby, which is all of them, they are soaking this in. They're putting the fake smiles on their faces or real smiles on their faces. They're applauding, and they're going to do all of that. They're going to stand and have the American flag and Israeli flag lapel pins, and who knows, they may even wave an Israeli flag from time to time and get really stupid. Benjamin Netanyahu is a terrorist. He belongs at the end of a firing squad and on the wrong end of a firing squad. And it should be quick and swift, and in fact, you can make it as long and drawn out as you'd want. He is the worst of the worst, and anybody who supports him is equally as bad as far as I'm concerned. Elise Stefanik just gave a press conference just before I started recording with Mike Johnson standing right next to her and was applauding Benjamin Netanyahu as being a great man who deserves our support and they have the right to exist and blah, blah, blah because of terrorists and they need their hostages back and so do we. And isn't that funny how we haven't actually seen any pictures of real hostages? But what we have heard, of course, are endless reports, including on CBS News, of individuals in Gaza being slaughtered by IDF soldiers and the children being used as target practice, even in recent days here. So let me play that audio for you, and you'll start to recognize that anybody over there is not our ally. Certainly not Israel, certainly not the Khazarian Mafia, and certainly not the Jews who believe that Jesus Christ is boiling in hell, in a pit of feces. This is not our ally. And anybody in the United States who says so is not your ally either. This can't get more obvious. It's one of the many reasons why I don't like Elise Stefanik, but she lies through her teeth. Every single time she breathes, she's lying. So, or she's again blackmailed in both. But either way, this was actually from, no kidding, CBS News. Recently. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
And then there's sniper bullets. I have children that were shot twice.
Wait, you're saying that children in Gaza are being shot by snipers?
Definitively. I have 2 children that I have photographs of that were shot so perfectly in the chest I couldn't put my stethoscope over their heart more accurately, and directly on the side of the head in the same child. No toddler gets shot twice by mistake by the world's best sniper. And they're dead center shots.
In fact, more than 20 doctors recently in Gaza also told Sunday Morning about gunshot wounds to children. One American doctor told us he even reviewed CT scans to confirm what he saw because he, quote, didn't believe that this many children could be admitted to a single hospital with gunshot wounds to the head. Some shootings have been captured on video. So, of all the disaster zones you've seen, how does Gaza compare?
All of the disasters I've seen combined, 40 mission trips, 30 years, ground zero, earthquakes, all of that combined doesn't equal the level of carnage that I saw against civilians in just my first week in Gaza.
And when you say civilians, is it mostly children?
Almost exclusively children. I've never seen that before. Never seen that. I've seen more incinerated children than I've ever seen in my entire life combined. I've seen more shredded children in just the first week.
Shredded?
Shredded.
What do you mean?
Missing body parts, being crushed by buildings, the greatest majority, or bomb explosions, the next greatest majority. We've taken shrapnel as big as my thumb out of 8-year-olds.
The UN reports that to date, more than 80% of Gaza's population has been displaced and the majority of its buildings destroyed. A reality which has taken its own toll on the well-being of children. What about the emotional wounds?
How can you measure that? I can't measure my own. How do you be an orphan and watching your family, melted in front of you and shredded in front of you? How do you fix that? Ever fix that?
In fact, so many Palestinian children have had family members killed that doctors created a shorthand term, WCNSF, wounded child, no surviving family.
Your greatest ally, ladies and gentlemen, that's your greatest ally. So they want you to believe that Israel's being attacked constantly by constant people, that they're being bombed and shot at by constant people. This is what Elise Stefanik would want you to believe. This is what anybody in Congress would lead you to believe who openly speaks about this. And the people who are the loudest about the lie are the ones who have the most to hide. This is why I detest these people. Again, there's no political side here. They're all in it. There's just those who never talk about it, and then those who are more honest or not, and then, of course, those who lie constantly through their teeth. Or those who are actually foolish enough, I should say, there's this fraction, those who are foolish enough to actually believe it, and believe that all of that's actually happening. Again, like in Elise Stefanik, for example, crying her eyes out at that education meeting with those university presidents. Why won't you denounce anti-Semitism? What's wrong with you? It's that kind of behavior that's completely irrational. And it just proves that she's owned by the Jewish lobby. The other aspect of that from a political and religious standpoint, which never gets brought up either, is that Palestinians are Christians. Many of them are anyway. Some of them are not, but many of them are. But what about Jews in Israel? You're not allowed to practice Christianity in Israel. It's against the law. They've made it so. They spit on Christians in Israel. Ample video evidence proves this. Ample people have testified to this officially. Everyone from celebrities to your average Christian pastor who goes over there and gets spat on by Orthodox Jews, and then the same is true with any average citizen who goes over there who actually knows what they're walking into and doesn't get the typical Jewish tour that the brochure says. If they were actually walking around with a cross on their neck, they'd be spat on or chased out of town. So, again, this is what they don't tell you. They also don't describe how individuals leave other religions and find Christ, that it doesn't work the other way around. No one leaves Christianity logically and walks away from Jesus Christ to become a Jew or to become a Muslim or what have you, or a Hindu or whatever. It doesn't work that way. Ample individuals who were raised Muslim or raised Jewish have found Jesus Christ to be their Lord and Savior, and they know that to be the case. There's even endless YouTube channels with these testimonies and these individuals out there bringing this up. So people, again, I'm not saying people don't walk away from Christ. They certainly do, but they're walking, of course, in the wrong direction. But see, the media doesn't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that Christian churches are being destroyed at the hands of Jews and the Khazarian mafia and Israeli army that exists over there, and making new land for themselves by just taking it by slaughtering people. This is consistently not being brought up. So Benjamin Netanyahu is now about to speak to Congress on Wednesday, and at the exact same time, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has said that if any member of Congress speaks out or protests during the speech to Benjamin Netanyahu during the speech, then they're going to be arrested. Does that sound like a constitutional republic to you, or does that sound like a democracy? As it turns out, from the definition and inception of the word, it is a democracy. It is not a constitutional republic. And we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. But not if you listen to Elise Stefanik. Elise Stefanik will say that this is a threat to our democracy. That anybody who doesn't fight along the Israeli army in Israel is a threat to our democracy. A democracy is a dictatorship. That's what the word means. It means majority rule. No rights for the people, only rights for government. That's what it means. So when she uses the word democracy, yes, she wants a democracy, and she wants to rule in that, as does everybody else who uses the word democracy. And yes, I've heard Donald Trump use the word democracy too. I don't like when he does that. It's a huge mistake. I'll get into that more in the next episode regarding all of these fake words and the origins of their words. But again, that's a big problem. Huge problem. So if I was a congressperson, congressman in Congress in Washington, D.C., here's what I'd do. I would go and I would protest and I would make them arrest me on the spot. I would bring an American flag. I would wave it. I would call him a traitor. I would interrupt him. And then I would sit down. And then I'd see if he responds to anything that I said. And then I would see if I were to get arrested in between him responding or, again, me sitting back down in my chair, whatever it would be. That's what everybody should be doing in that room. And if you don't have the stones to do that, my suggestion is that you just not go. Don't even go. Let the room be empty or mostly empty. This right here is a test. I believe that this is a 5D chess test that is being played right now against every member of the House of Representatives and the Senate, because they're all going to be in the same room. If they are there, they are a member of the Jewish lobby. So pay close attention. My recommendation is you watch the speech in its entirety. I'm going to, not because I like him, but because I want to see the looks on people's faces. I want to see what these cowards all look like. And I know what they look like, but you get what I'm saying. I want to see what they're actually going to do. I want to see their responses. I want to see their behavior. I want to see if somebody stands up and speaks out on our behalf, which is what a constitutional republic is. I want to see whether or not these people actually do the right thing. Because if they don't, then that right there will tell you that they don't represent us. They work for a foreign government, which means we are infiltrated by a foreign government, and we already know that we are. This is not the United States of America. It's the United States of Israel. And it need not be ever again. This has to stop. Okay. One quick education thing. Here is the former head of the American Education Association, my apologies, Randy Weingarten, every single time, speaking at the American Federation of Teachers event, or the Education Healthcare Public Services event. So this is the AFT convention of this year in their opening session, just days after the alleged assassination attempt of Donald Trump. This woman is unhinged, and this right here should tell you this is the education business and the behavior of it in a nutshell. And yes, she speaks for the indoctrination torture system that is American education. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
The November elections will determine which path we take as a nation. Progress is indeed possible, but so is the eradication of the rights and freedoms we hold dear. Historians like Timothy Snyder and Heather Cox Richardson, who study threats to democracy and how fascists come to power, conclude that it is seldom a dramatic event or attack that lets fascism in the door. The violence comes later, after they are voted in. Voting is still our best defense against tyranny and fascism, and it's our best offense to create the better future we dream of and march for. Progress is possible, but not guaranteed. When the history books are written about this moment, let them record that we the people, united, mobilized, and voted down this existential threat to democracy and freedom, that we continued the march for progress, that we laid the foundation for a better future, and that we sought to create a more perfect union. Progress is possible. Keep marching. Keep marching.
She seems nice. She seems pleasant, doesn't she? That's the American education system in a nutshell. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. That behavior right there is it. And I love her word usage. I love it. Because I'm going to break that down again in the next episode. That fascism is a threat to democracy. It most certainly is. If she understood what the term fascism meant and who created it and when it was created and why, and what it really means, and then, of course, what the word democracy means. So when she says, yes, fascism is a threat to democracy, yeah, it most certainly is. Fascism is a threat to a dictatorship. Fascism is a threat to communism. That's why it was created. That was the whole point. But again, word manipulation. These people don't know what they say, and they expect you to just blindly go along with it. And unfortunately, people do, because they aren't intelligent, and they don't look up words and their meanings. I thank God that I grew up in the 80s and was a child in the 80s with two parents who were educators and had been, and actually owned a dictionary, and taught us to look up words and their meanings and what they mean, and then look at the year of the origin of the word, and how most of these words are Greek and Latin. That's where most of them come from. But Randy Whitegarten doesn't know that, because she's an idiot. Not to mention the word progress. That's a funny word too. In the political landscape, the word progress just very quickly means progressing toward government control over the people. That we need to keep making progress, quote unquote. When they say that, that's what they mean. They mean government control over the people and progressing toward that. That's what a progressive is. A progressive is a person who wants government control over the people. But people who use the word progressive or call themselves progressive don't know that because they're idiots. Because they don't know what words mean, who creates them, what context, what was the timing, what was it used against at the time. They're not thinking people. And that, of course, irrational behavior in speaking alone is indicative of somebody who doesn't have their head on straight. To be able to go from, again, on a stage, dressed professionally on a stage, speaking to a room full of brainwashed goons, to go from whispering into a microphone to shouting at the top of your lungs and quite literally, as she is in the video, jumping up and down off of the ground. That right there is the behavior of a child that you would see in a grocery store who doesn't get what they want. I don't know how old she is, but she's an infant mentally. And she just gave it away. I didn't even edit the volume of what you just heard. It quite literally went from her whispering to shouting. Because that's accurate. That's exactly what she was doing. Okay. Let me wrap up here with a couple of jab-related things, rather important. First, this is from unbecoming.substack.com. Lies Are Unbecoming is the title of their particular channel. UNBEKOMING, and it was titled 30.9 million and counting. Rancourt and others excess mortality report a suppressive act of empire. It basically indicates that by the end of 2022, there were 30.9 million individuals who have died as a result of this whole COVID lie. And as we know, no one really died of COVID. They died of 5G poisoning, injections, and hospitals murdering them. There's some points here regarding this particular story. Let me see. It says, conclusion, we are compelled to state that the public health establishment and its agents fundamentally caused all the excess mortality in the COVID period via assaults on populations, harmful medical interventions, and COVID-19 vaccine rollouts. We conclude that nothing special would have occurred in terms of mortality had a pandemic not been declared and had the declaration not been acted upon. So says Rancourt, Hickey, and Leonard, the authors of that particular study. Again, I think that 30.9 is an understatement. to be honest. 30.9 by the end of 2022 would make sense, which again, add 2 years to that. And where are we now almost? You can venture to guess 60 plus million. I would venture to guess even that's a lowball number. So it's remarkably unfortunate, and it's even more unfortunate that there are people walking around who have no idea that this is even happening. There's also this, and I made brief mention of it in the last episode from one of the listeners and guests on the show. I just asked them to source this for me, and they did. They sent me the link where they got this. This was from statecarewalkin.com, and it has to do with Ozempic and mRNA. Ozempic, of course, being the weight loss shots. It says the following here in this article: Ozempic mRNA, a revolutionary treatment for diabetes. Living with diabetes can be challenging, but with advancements in medical technology, managing the condition has become easier than ever. One such breakthrough is Ozempic mRNA, a revolutionary treatment that has shown promising results in controlling blood sugar levels and improving overall health for individuals with diabetes. It says, what is Ozempic mRNA? Ozempic mRNA is a cutting-edge medication that utilizes messenger RNA, mRNA technology, to target and regulate blood sugar within the individuals with diabetes. It works by stimulating the production of insulin and reducing the production of glucagon, a hormone that raises blood sugar levels. By restoring the balance between insulin and glucagon, Ozempic mRNA helps individuals with diabetes achieve better glycemic control. It says, how does Ozempic mRNA work? Ozempic mRNA works by delivering synthetic mRNA molecules into the body, which instructs cells to produce a specific protein called glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1. GLP-1 plays a crucial role in regulating blood sugar levels by stimulating insulin secretion, slowing down digestion, and reducing appetite. By increasing GLP-1 production, Ozempic mRNA helps the body maintain optimal blood sugar levels throughout the day. It says benefits of Ozempic mRNA. Well, of course there are. Why wouldn't there be? So they want you to believe. It says improved glycemic control, rather. Ozempic mRNA has been shown to effectively lower HbA1c levels, a measure of long-term blood sugar control. By reducing HbA1c levels, individuals with diabetes can minimize the risk of complications associated with high blood sugar, such as cardiovascular disease, kidney damage, and nerve damage. Then it goes into, of course, weight loss management and weight management. It says, however, Ozempic mRNA has been found to promote weight loss in individuals with diabetes and blah, blah, blah. And then it says convenience. Oh, I'm sure it is. Ozempic mRNA is administered once a week, making it a convenient option for the individuals with busy lifestyles. Unlike daily injections or multiple medications, Ozempic mRNA simplifies the treatment regimen and improves adherence. Yeah. See, you can't have diabetes, ladies and gentlemen, if you're dead. So from that standpoint, yeah, it sure works, no doubt about it. It ends here. It says, take control of your diabetes today and try Ozempic mRNA. Experience the benefits of this groundbreaking treatment and improve your quality of life. Yeah. It's a revolutionary approach to diabetes management. So the two are ubiquitous now. Why would they publish this in statcarewalkin.com and openly state and put these two words / acronyms or names and acronyms together in the same treatment if they weren't actually in the same shots? They would be doing this clearly for a cover-up. I hope that that's rather obvious at this point. The individuals who have taken these shots, ladies and gentlemen, who are alive still, some of them are losing weight dramatically. And specifically, I'm talking about the COVID jabs. They're losing weight. Some of them look gaunt. There's a local school board member who looks terrible, and one guy who looks more gaunt than he already looked. And they're still alive. Don't know why, but they are. And people, of course, keep getting sick from the COVID shots, and that goes without saying, but understand, This is becoming ubiquitous in all shots, no matter the kind of injection. This is how you get rid of people without people knowing. And as I've said before and written about before, the easiest person to kill is the person who has no idea they're being hunted. I hate to end on such a gloomy note, but, it's the truth. As horrible as it is, and it is and continues to be very bad, understand that the ubiquity of mRNA is going to be across the board here with everything. It will be everywhere, in all shots going forward. Avoid them at all costs. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for the next episode here, which I'll air immediately after this, regarding the history of words and the words that we commonly hear that either have zero meaning or certainly the wrong definition, the wrong origin, and the wrong context. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, again, check out my Substack page, theamericanclassroom.substack.com. Make sure and watch that Sabrina Wallace video if you're interested. For my audience, I highly recommend it. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.